Why was violin making the worst Stuart era job? Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we were going to be looking at what many people consider to be the worst job during the Stuart era, violin making. Make sure to watch until the end to find out why. So during the Stuart era, which was from 1603 to 1714 in England, there were many different kinds of jobs. There were, of course, better jobs and worse jobs. But for this video, we're focusing on the worst job, which many people consider to be violin making. Violin making was considered a trade, not a craft, because it was seen as something that was done for money rather than something that was done out of passion. Because of this, the people who made violins were not respected very much. They were often looked down upon by society and were seen as low on the social rungs. To make matters worse, the workshops where violins were made were often dark, dirty, and dangerous places to work. The workers would often have to work long hours for very little pay, and the work itself was very hard and often dangerous. They would have to bend and shape the wood for the violins by hand, and they would often have to work with very sharp tools. There were several reasons why violin making was considered such a bad job. For one thing, the pay was very low. Most violin makers only made a few shillings a week, which is the equivalent of a few dollars per week today. This meant that many violin makers lived in poverty. They were unable to provide very much for their families, and their children often had to go out into the streets to beg for food. Another reason why violin making was such a bad job was because the work was so dangerous. As I mentioned before, the workers would often have to use sharp tools, and they would often work with dangerous chemicals. This meant that there was always a risk of injury, and many violin makers lost fingers or even their eyesight due to the work. Finally, the work was just simply boring. Making violins was a very repetitive task, and the workers would often have to make dozens of violins per week. This meant that it was easy to become bored and even depressed. In conclusion, being a violin maker during the Stuart era was, as you can see, really quite awful. It paid very little, the hours were long, and the work was dangerous and repetitive. No wonder it was considered one of the worst jobs of the time. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this.